this residence?
Frank Carson. This is the Manteca Police Department. We have a search warrant. The entire property is surrounded by officers. Come to the front door with your hands up.
We are in Stanislaus County, the agricultural center of the United States. These are almond orchards. How cool. Oh, that's so cool. And we're only like a mile outside of town.
Turlock and Stanislaus County is a heavily agriculture area, and that helps build the community.
Our town is probably one of the best all along the 99. You can kind of get everything you need here.
It's just a nice, quaint, peaceful place to live.
This is literally Americana with the tree-lined street that creates the little canopy. And everything's orderly. Like, I have to imagine this is a really good, like, trick-or-treating town. I mean, it's beautiful here, but there's a problem, and it is drugs. And so we see a lot of folks like this really struggling, just walking up and down the main drag. That's not fun.
Specifically in Turlock, there's a lot of heroin and meth. We see it in the people that come to try to sell stuff to us. They're trying to sell us stolen stuff, or they're, you know, sometimes I think they're stealing from us too.
The methamphetamine epidemic and the crimes that are associated with it are, you name it, everything's open. It's open game. It's the Wild West out here.
Well, and the police presence is huge. We have seen so much law enforcement, just even in like a 5-block radius. The very things that make this a successful agricultural community, you know, the way they can send out food everywhere in America, it's the same reason this has become a drug hub. And in this case, drugs play a huge part. In 2012, a young man named Corey Kaufman went missing, and a huge investigation was launched. And it turned into one of the longest, most expensive trials, not only in this county's history, but in the state of California.
I'm Kevin Pickett. I'm Corey's stepfather. I've had him since he was a year old, and I've grown to love him more than life itself. He loved life. You could hear him singing in the shower. He'd come out of the bathroom, you know, with a towel on, he'd slide across the floor like Tom Cruise in that movie. He's always been a great kid, but he just got it with the wrong people in this town. And I think a lot of things happened to him because of this town. Corey had a problem with meth, and he started hanging around this man named Mike Cooley. Mike was in prison for a long time, which I didn't like. And I could feel it in my bones that the things that Mike did with him wasn't always great. Mike was stealing stuff, tools, antiques, and other things, you know, for meth. That day, my son got up and did his thing and didn't come home that night. I said, something's wrong. He would have called me at least. And that's when I called the cops, you know, just trying to find my son, that's all I care about.
Kevin, I'm Hillary. How are you?
Glad to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you. I want to hear all about Corey from you.
That's Corey, his mom.
He's a handsome kid.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. He was big, blue-eyed, blonde-haired. His laugh was just one of a kind. This is what we call his Billy Bob look.
His Billy Bob look?
Yeah, cowboy.
Wait, was he into cowboying?
He loved cowboy. And here he is before he came up missing. Pretty close.
So what's the last time that you see Corey?
I seen him going down the road. He was going to take a wheelbarrow back that he had borrowed. He didn't come home the next day. So I went to my Cooley's, trying to find Corey, and his bike was there.
So your son's bike is still sitting at Mike Cooley's house?
Yep. Mike said, Corey's not here. I said, well, where is he at? He said, well, I told him not to go over that property, but I think he went over there anyway. I said, what property? He said, over there behind his house. That's where the lawyer, Frank Carson's property was, that Mike and Corey was supposedly stealing stuff from.
So what do you do after that?
I went to Frank Carson's property. Frank's stepdaughter was there. Frank, he was on the phone with his stepdaughter, and I talked about going on the property and just looking to see if there's evidence of my son being over there somehow. And she tried to shut the door in my face, and I put my foot inside the door. Everybody would not talk to me. I was just asking questions and concerned about certain things. Why would you do that?
Do you call law enforcement?
Yep.
And what did they say to you?
That I'd have to wait a certain amount of time before I could place a missing person report. So we waited 72 hours, I believe, and that's when I reported him missing.
What do you do after that?
I started making up flyers.
Is this one of them? How many of these do you think you passed out?
1,000.
Really?
Or more. But nothing else was being done. And then the highway patrolman next door to my house, talked to him about what can I do to get something going on by my son's case. I told him that my son, he ended up on a property over at Frank Carson's house. When I mentioned Frank Carson's name, and that's when it really started escalating into this big investigation.
Corey Kaufman was missing, and no one heard about it. It was just another poor, lost, drug-addicted soul, and the cops didn't care particularly. No one was involved. Nothing happened. And it wasn't until they looked at Frank Carson that all of a sudden people heard about Corey Kaufman. My name is Doug Maynor. I've been a lawyer for 40 years, including 22 with the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office. And I watched Frank in action when I was a prosecutor and he was a defense attorney for many, many years. There's a million Frank Carson stories, but all the things he's done in the courthouse, he'd be in the grill of these cops, these DAs, and saying, you know, your case is bad. He'll be calling insulting names. He'll accuse them of sexual deviancy, of dishonesty. I mean, he made people, you know, viscerally, personally angry. If Frank wasn't the suspect, no one would have heard about Corey Kaufman. We wouldn't be here today. Barry Flatiger is the elected district attorney of Stanislaus County, and she's completely in charge of something like 30, 35 attorneys and a budget of untold millions of dollars. And she felt offended by the things that Frank did to her attorney. She felt protective of them, and she said, he's a bad man. So everybody paid attention when Frank's name came up.
Once you get them to take the missing person case seriously, the one person that put your son at Frank Carson's is Mike Cooley.
Exactly. If my son did go over there, it's because of Mike Cooley, because they was apparently thieving antiques and property from them.
Michael Cooley is a local thug. If you're from Turlock and you're up to shenanigans or, you know, methamphetamine type of activities, you're gonna know Mike Cooley. I'm Malvino. I worked for the Sheriff's Department for the last 28 years. Mike has been in this area since the beginning of my career, you know, robbing, stealing, to get high kind of stuff. He did carry some weight because he was a pretty muscular guy, and because of his connections on the streets, he was well regarded with the inmate population.
Did they look at Michael Cooley?
Yeah, and they said he talked to him, and they said, well, he was clean.
Uh-huh.
And then I saw that interview with Turlock Journal.
Corey was over there earlier that day, and we was in my backyard playing horseshoes, and there was some pipe on the other side of the fence on Frank's property, and Corey seen it. He wanted to go over there and get it. I told him that there was some people over there that we wasn't going to go do it, and he gave me his word he wasn't going to go do it. He said he was going to go somewhere else and try to make the money. Apparently he lied to me. He went over that fence, and he never came back.
We had a house in Turlock. There was a lot of drug activity in the neighborhood, and they were stealing from us, and we lost a lot of stuff. My name is Georgia DiFilippo. My husband is Frank Carson. By the early 2000s, we had a booming law business. And we had kind of this side hustle of selling antiques, and we'd go to swap meets and do things on weekends that were not law related. I had a vegetable garden over there, and Frank loved old cars, and we loved to collect antiques. It just was a good life. And then along about 2011, we were at a swap meet, and we saw a man. He was selling some of our stuff. Frank recognized it, and he just flipped. So we went home. And that's when we discovered the fence had been cut and the containers were open. Everything had been gone through. We made a couple reports to the police, but the cops told me, that we have to catch him in the act. And then we decided to put barbed wire on top of the fences, and we bought a motion detector. But thieves kept coming back. That's when Mike Cooley lived in the house on the other side of the fence, and he just started stealing everything.
When I first met Frank, he was over our house to see if we had any of his stolen property. He threatened. I mean, he kicked my door in, he kicked the gate in. He didn't have no respect for nothing. And he said, if I ever catch you or any of your friends in my backyard, and he goes, especially you, Mr. Cooley, he goes, I will kill you.
District Attorney investigators interviewed Mr. Cooley and came up with a theory that Corey Kaufman was one of the thieves, and Frank caught him and killed him. Now, no one knows he's dead. They just know he's not around Turlock anymore. And it's very hard to prosecute a no-body homicide. So the cops were very aggressive in developing evidence.
Hi, honey, it's me.
Hi, Frank. I was wondering if you wanted to get a taco or something.
Traditionally, law enforcement does not use wiretaps to investigate their cases, except in very rare and limited circumstances. But in this case, wiretaps were used a lot.
Hi, honey, I'm sorry to bother you.
What's up?
The cops have come with dogs, I guess body-sniffing dogs, and they searched, they cut all the locks on all the containers.
Did they find any bodies?
No. Hell no. There isn't any.
Are they done with us then, or?
No, I don't think they're done with us by a long shot.
The district attorney's office, headed by Birgit Flatiger, created a task force. I've never seen it in 30 years in this county where the district attorney's office would be the lead investigative agency in a case.
We were working at the office, and an officer came in from the Turlock Police Department, and he said, I have some questions regarding the disappearance of Corey Kaufman. And Frank said, well, if you have any questions, I want you to put them in writing. And, the officer tried to ask a few, and he said, well, I just need to know. Frank would just say, put them in writing, put them in writing. So he left. It's 7 o'clock, we're getting ready to leave for the night. And I look up, and these three guys had just walked into our office. Investigator Bunch from the district attorney's office, and he was accompanied by a couple of detectives.
Hey, Frank. Mr. Carson.
How you doing? You have a warrant for my arrest or anything?
No, I don't.
And they said, well, Frank, we'd like to ask you some questions.
Hey, Georgia, come here.
We're here to talk to you about a potential murder. You're a person of interest.
Get out.
You need to
Get out. Get out.
It was upsetting. They wouldn't go. They just stood there by the door. Frank said, leave a lot of times.
We'd really like to find Corey's body.
Get out.
Bunch was the one that did the talking. We just have a few questions. Why won't you answer our questions? Button pushing,
Georgia, this thing's going to be all bad.
I'm ready. So Frank starts saying, he's threatened my wife.
Get out.
Are you being aggressive, Mr.
Get out.
Carson? This isn't going to go away.
Get out.
And it went on.
It's not going to work this time, Mr. Carson.
Finally, they left. Kirk Bunch, who was an investigator for the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office, and Frank, they knew each other. Kirk just hated Frank.
Frank had a long and pretty controversial career here in Stanislaus County because he was the guy defending the underdogs. But that also made him the nemesis of law enforcement who he'd battle in the courtroom.
Hello?
Hi,
Oh, hi.
Martha. How are you?
It's so nice to meet you.
I'd love to ask you about what your relationship was with Frank Carson predating this case.
Frank and I worked together in the public defender's office.
Did you and Frank have similar reputations?
No, I don't think so. I wasn't as direct as Frank is.
Was he a good yeller?
Oh, he yelled. He's a great yeller. But mostly the problem was he won.
And is that what pissed people off?
And that's what really irritated the district attorney's office, that he would call them names, insult them in every turn, and then beat them.
Corey Kaufman goes missing. Your friend and colleague, Frank Carson, is very quickly pointed at. What was your understanding of who was directing people in Frank's direction?
My understanding from the get-go was that Kirk Bunch, a district attorney investigator, was the person driving the train.
On the witness stand, when the cops got away from the cold, hard facts and started shading things, Frank was very effective in pointing that out. Frank had some very intense, very hardcore personal attacks on Kirk Bunch, and in effect accused him of being unhinged, unstable, and lying and fabricating evidence. So you've got the biggest haters in town in charge of Frank's investigation. A lot of criminal defendants, you know, they got the message and they knew that if I had some bad information on Carson, I could use it to get out from a case.
Did you tell him that Mr. Carson had asked you to make sure the stuff stopped over there?
I might have known.
Robert Woody is from that drug-using community in Turlock, and he worked as a janitor for the Atwell brothers, the owners of Pop and Cork liquor store, known to us as Bobby and Dee. They knew Frank because Frank had represented Bobby in a bar licensing issue a few years earlier.
Okay.
And now the theory was that the Atwells were there to provide security for Frank Carson on his property. And Corey Kaufman came onto the property, and that the Atwells captured him, struggled with him, and shot him.
Did you tell him that they did a good job, they're never going to find that body? Just telling you what we're being told.
Okay. I say a lot of to me, but...
So they're saying that Woody helped the Atwells kill Corey Kaufman.
Yes, but he denied any involvement.
But they kept looking for evidence, and now focused on the two Atwell brothers who ran the Pop and Cork liquor store.
Mr. Bunchke came to talk to me at the store. We was in the back room and he asked me questions. Just Frank, just Frank. And after that, day and night, he parked his car outside across the street, taking pictures in the store. They search our house, they search our stores. They harass us all the time here.
I say you bugging us too much every day. We told you how much we know. We don't know anything.
Hey, D, it's a murder investigation that we're investigating.
I don't care. I don't know anything.
The more people you have, the more chances there are that someone's going to start talking. So they started to wiretap everybody who were friends of the Atwells.
The Pop and Cork, it had a back room, and it was a place where law enforcement would hang out. They could go into the back room, have a couple of beers, and when the Atwells, who were being harassed in their minds by Kirk Bunch, they called their law enforcement friends to find out what they could do about it.
I'm fucking paranoid now. I don't want somebody put underneath my car tracking anything.
Yeah, just get a mirror. You can buy one with a mirror with the glass.
Uh-huh.
And you can look under there, brother.
Show me, you know how to do it.
Yeah. Don't stress. Just relax.
They developed a lot of incidental evidence on officers Walter Wells, Scott McFarland, and Kenton R.
So how does Frank fall into that?
Basically, the idea was that Frank had ordered the Atwells to kill whoever came onto his property. From the very beginning, they were looking at Frank.
For murder?
For murder, right.
Without a body?
Without a body.
"26-year-old Corey Kaufman's body was found by hunters in the Stanislaus National Forest."
Investigators came knocking on the door. They told me they had found Corey's body. Remains. It hit me hard. Thought about suicide, about a lot of things at that time, and it hurt me bad.
was told he got shot.
Stabbed. Shot. When he jumped over that fence, that was his last jump.
Oh, he was trying to break in?
Oh, he came over there to steal more off the property.
Oh, he was doing that to your lawyer?
Mm-hmm. To my lawyer, Frank Carson.
Robert Woody told his girlfriend that he was part of killing Corey Kaufman.
Really?
Yeah. He was arrested. He was interrogated for hours and hours and hours.
Listen to this.
Last jump.
Oh, he was trying to break in?
So the lawyer was very frustrated that the police weren't doing their job.
Yes.
And so that's why he summoned you guys.
Where was Bobby at?
It was in Frank's backyard.
Now, with the body and Woody's testimony, Birgit Flatter felt that she had all the ammunition she needed to get a conviction.
Please exit the residence with your hands up.
Turn around. Mike, am I under arrest?
The investigating officers are going to explain everything to you, okay?
Stop resisting. You don't have to handcuff me.
This has been a long 3-year investigation into the death and homicide of Corey Kaufman. The task force has worked together since 2012 in order to see that justice is served, culminating in today's arrests and execution of search warrants.
Police department, search warrant!
Carson is described as the ringleader, enlisting henchmen and bringing associates and 3 current and former CHP officers into the scheme.
They attacked my house from all angles, even going over the backyard fences. This vehicle came around the corner with screeching tires, pointing their gun at me.
They arrested 3 cops, the 2 Atwalls who ran the liquor store.
They took me from the bed, half naked, put handcuffing me, arrested me.
Come here.
They arrested Frank's wife, his daughter.
I got the full treatment and the red striped suit and a little cavity search, and off I go to BMAX, maximum security.
It took a lot of work, it took a lot of time, and it has finally come together.
I couldn't believe it when it happened. This is the arrest warrant.
This entire thing?
Yes. It's 324 pages.
How did you get involved in this case?
The Atwalls were arrested on Friday, and on Saturday, I became Bobby's attorney.
Day 1 of the preliminary hearing, the state presented text messages and a wiretap on Georgia and her daughter.
They had subpoenaed the text messages, discussions between Chrissy and Georgia about security at the property.
Forensic analyst told the court he combed through more than 10,000 text messages from a backup file on a laptop belonging to Carson's stepdaughter, Christina DeFilippo. The prosecutors insist show the family was upset about the thefts and took measures into their own hands.
Prosecutor is Marlisa Ferreira. She starts out the prelim with the text messages where I asked Chrissy to go out into the field and see if anybody's there, you know.
In one of the messages, Carson's wife, Georgia DeFilippo, writes her daughter, quote, "Don't suppose you want to dress in black and slip out to see if we're being robbed blind tonight." In another, she writes, quote, "Frank is flipping out. He'll be packing a gun."
Christine said, "I'm getting freaked out." And I said, "Don't worry, Frank's coming down later." And then I just kind of added, "and he's got his gun." I just thought it would make Chrissy feel better, but it turned out to be a pretty big deal.
What are you doing up so early? Oh, I broke the window.
Christine and I had a phone conversation one day. She was being woken up about 7:30 in the morning by 2 dueling lawnmowers next door. And she pounded on the window and it broke, and she just was in tears.
You were lawn mowing. I broke it. Why? Are they still mowing the damn lawn? Yeah, they're still mowing it. Do you want me to come and shoot them?
They tried to use that as proof that Georgia was willing to kill.
That's insane.
It was insane. They can take such innocent things out of context, and then suddenly they make it into something that is not what you intended.
The state's theory was that the Atwall brothers killed Corey Kaufman. Had the Atwall brothers ever been accused of a violent crime or murder before?
No. The Atwalls didn't have any kind of a record.
So then what did the prosecution present?
Their theory was that Dee Atwell shot Corey Kaufman on Frank's property. Then Dee Atwell and Bobby Atwell and Robert Woody loaded Corey Kaufman's body into a truck and took it to a field next to the popping court in the middle of Turlock, where they buried it for a month and then unburied it and moved it to up in the mountains.
So that theory that the state presented is a minefield of forensic evidence.
He says Dee was ahead of him. Dee jumps into the fight. He says he turns away and hears a gunshot. Boom.
The state's claim that he was beat and shot. There would have been blood on Frank's property.
Right, there would have been blood on their property. There would have been some evidence of Corey's presence. There was nothing there. There would have been something at the popping court.
Like a cadaver dog would have picked up on something.
A cadaver dog, and they used dogs. They brought dogs in everywhere.
Right here is where he says that he believes he started digging the hole.
They took soil samples, they dug it up, and in fact, you could see where they claim the body was. There's a pipe running through it that's only 6 inches below the ground surface, so there's no way for a body to be in that space.
So is there any forensic evidence in Frank's backyard?
There's no forensic evidence in Frank's yard. There's no forensic evidence in the popping court yard. There was no DNA. There was no ballistics. There was nothing.
How in the world did this prelim, that did not include any forensic evidence or physical evidence, how was this drawn out over 18 months?
You really had to be there.
Walter Wells faces a murder charge. Scott McFarland and Eduardo Quintanar Jr. face conspiracy and accessory charges.
I did wonder how they landed on Walter Wells out of all the officers that hung out at the popping court for murder.
They never connected Walter with Frank in any way. But Walter Wells was alleged to have had Corey Kaufman's phone and therefore must have had something to do with burying him.
Corey Kaufman's cell phone piece of it is very confusing. Can you tell me about this cell phone expert?
The cell phone expert, he spent hours and hours and hours going over these phone records of all the defendants.
Okay.
Looking for where everybody's cell phones were at various times on the timeline. Mm-hmm. So Walter Wells' phone was pinging off a cell tower in the same vicinity as Corey Kaufman's phone in the 2 weeks after Corey's disappearance, where his phone was still alive.
They relied on cell phone evidence to link me to the murder of Corey Kaufman, but I found out that the cell phone expert's testimony was inherently misleading.
They said that he was carrying around the dead guy's phone in his pocket to throw the cops off, and the evidence of that is it pinged different towers in Turlock. Well, Turlock is a small town, and there are not that many cell towers there, and anybody who lives in Turlock who moves around is going to have their cell phone ping off the same towers that Wells's phone pinged off.
Walter was also patrolling that area on duty, so there's no surprise that Corey's phone was in the same sector as Walter's phone.
But a big deal was made of this.
Exactly.
If you're really going to kill this guy, you're going to walk around with his phone in your pocket? You know, who does that? But that was an example of the depths that the prosecution task force would go to convict Frank Carson. The preliminary hearing against Frank Carson was one for the books. It was, I think, the longest in the history of California, a year and a half or so.
During the prelim, I was just waiting for that smoking gun. What is it exactly that we did wrong? And at no time during the whole prelim did they establish that.
They had, what, 150 witnesses to develop as much evidence as they could. Witnesses, jailhouse informants, wiretaps, and they kept throwing that crap up against the wall until something sticks. And that's why the prelim, it took so long. Meanwhile, Frank and the other defendants, they're locked up in jail and their lives are falling apart. It took a toll on Frank and his health started to suffer. The way they had him housed in the jail, they kept it extra cold and the lights don't go off. Well, how do you sleep at night when you're freezing and the lights don't go off and you're facing the death penalty?
Being in jail was horrible. It was extremely difficult for me to get up many days, just find a willingness to want to push through.
There was a lot of screaming at night. It was cold, it was damp, sewage would leak through there.
You want to kill yourself in there, you want to just commit a suicide. It's just like small room, small door, they only come, open the lock, only give you food, and then they lock back. That was like a nightmare.
The longevity of this trial feels very much like that saying, like, the cruelty is the point.
Exactly.
You know, the longer you can make it last, the longer Frank is locked up in county jail. Did it feel that way to you guys?
They weren't in any hurry to finish the preliminary hearing. They were pushing to get every defendant to turn on Frank.
They were waiting for us to turn on each other, that one person was going to rat the other person out.
They were trying to make my life as miserable as possible while I was in jail so that I would come forth with information about the Outlaw brothers and Frank Carson.
They just want Frank Carson, just say Frank Carson, just say Frank Carson. In the courthouse, Mr. Bunch always signal us. He always touches his phone, call me. Go home today, just say Frank did it.
Do any of the defendants ever turn on Frank?
No. In fact, Frank at one point said he'd plead guilty to get them off.
There was a moment where Frank Carson was extremely upset, and he told us that he would be willing to just take the blame, fall on the sword for everyone.
And then one time I remember Frank say, you know what, boys, you have a life to live. You know, I should take a deal and I'll go to prison, you guys go live your life.
We all agreed. We were not going to allow him to confess to something that he didn't do.
We told him, Frank, no, don't. We're not going to do anything like that. We're just going to fight.
The preliminary hearing goes and goes and goes, and we're getting new information all the time, and it's dribbling in. So we felt the district attorney was withholding discovery.
At what point is the district attorney's office supposed to turn over everything they have to you guys?
We should have had all of that the day we started. We didn't. About 14 months into it, all of a sudden, Marlisa Ferreira announced to the court that there were 164 tapes that we didn't know existed.
Okay.
Marlisa told that judge the day before that she didn't have anything else. And then the next day she comes in with these big stacks of all these interviews and stuff. And the judge looked at her and said, what's that?
Miss Ferreira rolls into court one day and says, oh yeah, I've got 70 discs of evidence that I just never got around to giving to you.
And that's when the judge said no, and she was angry because this is a violation.
And finally, this judge decided that the evidence of the district attorney's malfeasance was so strong that she had to let Frank and the other defendants out of custody.
It was wonderful. It was like a Christmas present.
When we finally heard that she was going to let us go home, I just started crying. Everybody just in the courthouse just break down. It's just like all crying.
First thing you want to do.
Oh, have dinner with my wife.
Yeah.
You know, after all the delays in discovery, after all the fabricated evidence, even after all that, the judge found that the case should go forward to trial. I was shocked.
Something that never should have started. We can't seem to get to the end. Bobby and Dee and Frank are going to trial on murder charges, the penalty for conviction of which is life without parole.
The state has all of this weird circumstantial stuff, but they have a witness.
Right.
That they're excited to present. Tell me about that.
Robert Woody is the star witness because he is claiming that he was with the Atwalls when they had the confrontation with Corey Kaufman, but there's a problem with Robert Woody as a witness.
I don't know who killed him, okay?
The first time he was interrogated, he denied any involvement.
You don't understand the magnitude.
People get convicted, and they get convicted of first-degree murder, and they spend the rest of their life in prison.
They intimidated him. They subjected him to a really long interview.
Hey, we're going to take a break. Need to go to the bathroom?
Then there's a 20-minute bathroom break, and he comes back, and he changes his story.
I took you to the bathroom, right? Okay, and you made a statement to us.
You said you were there. You said Bobby was there. You said Daljeet was there. Okay, and you said that Bobby was the main aggressor.
Is that fair to say in so many words? Yes. Okay, why don't you come back? Pull your chair.
They told Woody that you have two choices. You can be facing the death penalty, or you can be a witness and get out from under all of this.
Robert, we're here for you. Seriously, I'm not going to let you down. Robert, I'm not going to let you down.
Woody knew that the more information he gave on Carson, the better the deal he would get.
He was arrested, and for the next year plus, there are various other interviews where Robert's trying to figure out what he's supposed to say.
It's the details that we can corroborate that make the entire the thing make sense.
The only problem is Woody didn't know what to say, and they fed him information by giving him suggestive or leading questions.
So is the information true that we got is that they buried Corey's body at the business initially, in the back?
They say, what happened to the body, and didn't you bury the body at the popping court? I mean, they just suggest the whole everything.
No, they didn't bury the body in the back.
But you guys didn't go to the mountains that night. And I'm telling you that because the cell phones don't show anybody driving up to the mountains that night.
You guys went to the store first.
Robert's trying to figure out what he's supposed to say, and it is very clear.
Right.
In fact, the whole...
You walked up the hill,
right.
I walked up the hill.
The whole scenario then comes the worst part. He has another interview on November 26th.
What happened when Carson came up?
Handed him a gun.
D-handed who?
Carson.
Carson the gun?
Yeah.
He says that Frank was present with a gun, and that Walter Wells pulled up in a police car, all of which not only is not true, but it can't be true, because everybody knows where Walter Wells was. He was at his father's funeral.
Even his attorney, they pulled it back. They said, well, Woody was telling the truth about these things, but when he said that Carson had a gun in his hand, yeah, okay, he made that up. And the DA still stuck with him.
Woody tells a lot of differing stories about what happened with the case, what happened with Corey Kaufman's body.
Right.
Can a judge step in and be like, this is ridiculous?
Yes, but she didn't.
The DA went with Robert Woody with a parade of jailhouse informants that they dangled deals in front of. They had, what, 100, 150 witnesses? None of them had Frank say the magic words, go kill him for me. None of them had Frank with the gun in his hand. None of them had Frank cutting the body up or destroying it. None of them had Frank doing anything except being Frank.
We were sitting there and the jury came in. They handed their decision to the judge, and she looked at it, and it was Frank Carson was not guilty, Bobby was not guilty, Dee was not guilty. It was wonderful.
Champagne and a taste of vindication for this Modesto attorney. The congratulations for Frank Carson in the form of one hug after another. What are the emotions that you're feeling right now?
Relief and happy.
Here it is. I haven't been in here since we were arrested. It's been 7 years.
I'm sure while you were living here, this was kind of a grown-up playland.
It was fun.
It's like an American picker's dream.
We had lost so much. It's just sad. I do believe in the justice system still, and the jury did the right thing, and they listened to us. But we shouldn't have been in that position in the first place.
Carson says prosecutors need to search for Kaufman's true killers for justice to prevail.
The sooner that they replace the investigators in this case, the sooner they're going to find, hopefully, who perpetrated it.
Tell me who's responsible for my son's murder. If it's not these people, and you all said dead sure they were, tell me who is. Because one day I will find out.
This case was not about justice for Corey Kaufman. It was to get Frank Carson. And in the process, I was just collateral damage. I lost so much time away from my daughter and my family. I lost my career. I lost my retirement. I lost my home.
It's a nightmare. When I come home, my little daughter, she doesn't remember me. I'm never going to be the same person. My brother, he never going to be the same person. I can't believe it, what they did to us.
We felt like we were the victims of a vindictive prosecution by a district attorney's office that didn't want to deal with a defense attorney who was a fighter for justice.
Frank financially was gutted. His law practice is in shambles, and his body suffered. He was injured from being in the jail for so long. After a while, his kidneys started to fail. Yeah, you can say, well, he was acquitted and he walked. He lost.
Frank was really never the same. His health continued to decline, and he died in August of 2020.
I'm so sorry. What do you want people to know about this case?
What I really want is for this to never happen again. One person like Birgit Flatiger has all the power to take your life away with no evidence to do so.
In a small town like this, the power of the district attorney's office to upend lives is frightening. Frank Carson spent his career calling out abuse of power from the district attorney's office, and in the end, they proved him right.